Welcome to TFL's new series, TFL Leaderboard, Hot or Not. And with me as always is Paul, our expert race car driver, and we find out if a car is hot or not by the end of this episode. And today we've got a very special car. What are we testing, Paul?
The VW GTI Mark 7.
That's right, but not just the Mark 7, we're also testing the Mark 6. And best of all, we're testing the Mark 6 tuned and untuned. So we've actually taken not one, not two, but three cars around the racetrack. And we started with...
Yeah, we started with the Mark 6 untuned, of course, to see how that went. And I think it's always interesting because you always wonder, like, does my tuning dollar actually buy me performance? So it's always kind of exciting to see if it does.
So let's cut to the track and see how it went around the track. Now, under the hood of the Mark 6 is a 2-liter, but this one puts out only 200 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque. We did have a chance to put it on the dyno to find out how much it's really putting out up here at a mile above sea level, and we did that both with the engine in stock form and after a Cobb tune. Just over 240.
Yeah.
And then this is
That's horsepower, yeah.
That's horsepower, so we're at
202.6.
202.6, yeah. So
yeah. Let's pull up that first one. I think it was downshifting on the first one.
Let's see the first one. The real difference isn't in horsepower, it's only 10 horsepower, but there is a significant amount of torque when you do the flash. When you do the stage 1 tune, basically you're getting 40 torques more, which you can really feel. You can really feel. That's what you feel when you accelerate. You don't feel horsepower. Horsepower is what is giving you top end speed. What you feel when you accelerate is torque, and you'll feel the difference.
But the key thing about dynos and front wheel drive cars is the drivetrain loss is so much lower than an all-wheel drive system. So we're going to see better numbers versus the engine rating versus, like, say, a Subaru where it has all-wheel drive or anything with all-wheel drive.
And what we found out is interesting. After we tuned it, this engine is almost identical in horsepower and torque to this engine. Now the question is, which of these two is faster? Well, Paul's the one who's going to have to find that out.
Little sluggish off the line, then it suddenly builds boost. And then into the first corner. I like the brake feel, and the car has pretty good grip when you turn in. And the steering's pretty decent on this car, so it's nice steering. Bottoms out a little bit over the compression after our little jump there. And then into the corner, and of course front wheel drive car, so we're dealing with lots of understeer and then trying to put the power down on the way out. Those poor front tires have so much to try and do. Engine pulls pretty well all the way up to redline. Again, a little bit of tire rub happening there in the corner. Absolutely zero oversteer or even neutral. The car just kind of deals with a little bit of understeer the whole way around. It's not excessive, but it's definitely its kind of primary cornering trait, as it were. You're just going to get understeer out of these cars. It makes them pretty good to drive, though, because it's fast, and the understeer makes it pretty easy. So it's a car that a driver without a lot of experience can go pretty fast in, pretty confidently right away, because he's not too worried about the rear end just kicking out.
The only difference between a stock Mark 6 and this car are the wheels and tires. Now they're 18-inch Continental Extreme contacts, and they're very aggressive summer tires. So they're very similar to the Mark 7's tires, so it should be an interesting competition between the two. How do you think you did?
I actually enjoyed driving it. I think it did pretty well. It's got decent amount of grip, a lot of understeer, front wheel drive car, right? So I don't know, probably around a 110-ish or so, maybe?
Very close, yeah, you got 109.66. So the question now is, will this be faster or slower than the Mark 7, and will it be faster or slower after we tune it? All right, Paul, it's very cold out there today.
Yes, it is.
Very cold out. But, you know, we test the cars when we get them. We can't control the weather. What do you think of the Mark 6 untuned?
there wasn't any opportunities even in transitions to really get the rear end working or trail brake it into corners. But having said that, the grip was pretty good, and the car worked well around the track.
Now, of course, the premise of the show is that I spend a week behind the wheel of the car, which I did not do in the Mark 6, but I did do in the Mark 7. And I got to tell you, after spending a week behind the wheel of that car, I am in love. It's a really good car. You could see that it's a car that's been slowly, methodically, and cleverly designed to a pinnacle of where it is right now. The engine is torquey, it's fast, it's fun, the car is comfortable, it's tidy, it's the right size. I mean, it's just everything that you want a vehicle to be, and especially a vehicle that can seat 4 people or 5 in a pinch.
Yeah, super practical car to own, and I think you know, of course, it's a smaller car, so it's easy to park, but it's very efficient in its use of space because it's a hatchback, so you can get lots of stuff in it. So it's kind of the perfect little daily driver, but it also has a great little sprinkling of performance in there as well.
Yeah, the question is, how fast did it go around the track? Well, let's find out. Under the hood of this Mark 7, we have a 2-liter, and this 2-liter is probably one of the best engines in the automotive world. It is turbocharged. In this case, it puts out 210 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And once again, it's going through a good old manual transmission, a 6-speed. All right, it's a little cold out here, but think of it this way. It's like a summer day in Siberia. Yeah, I know it would be better to test this on a warm day, but we get the cars when we get them, and we have to take advantage of the track when we can. So we're testing today. These are relatively aggressive tires. They're Bridgestone Potenzas S001s. They're on 18-inch wheels, and of course the issue with the GTI is that it puts power through the front wheel. So we'll see how these do on a cold day or a summer day in Siberia.
Instantly a little bit of wheel spin I had to modulate there. Oh, the turn-in is super crisp on this car. Turns in much better than the Mark 6 going around. I really enjoyed that. I can already trust the car a lot more. No bottoming out across the bump. And then turning it in, it's a little bit more playful. I get the rear end to come out on the brakes. The Mark 6 wouldn't do that. So I like this balance that I'm feeling here. Nice little 4-wheel drift through that corner. That was kind of fun. On the brakes through here, let's see if we can get the rear end to work here a little bit. Yeah, there we go. A little bit of slide there. Back into the right. Coming on in. And that helps you kind of point the car quicker. And that's so important for front-wheel drive cars. They don't like accelerating when the wheels turn. So if you can slide them slightly into the corner, that really helps you straighten the exit of the corner out and helps you put the power down. So there's no doubt in my mind now that this car is quite a bit faster around the track than the Mark 6. It has nothing to do with the engine and everything to do with the handling of this car. Just much more grip out of the front. And that really helps me carry speed through the track here.
All right, Paul, how do you think you did?
So I'm guessing it was quicker by at least a second or so. So
It was quicker by
a lot, yeah.
2 seconds, man.
2 seconds. That tune better be amazing.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get you in the tune car and see if you can chop 2 seconds off your best time. All right, so I was impressed. It was over 2 seconds faster than the Mark 6. Why do you think that is?
Man, the moment I took off in that car and accelerated, you know, the acceleration was already better. I've got a manual transmission to work with rather than the DSG and the Mark 6. But I turned it into the first corner and it was night and day, the difference in the vehicle. So the turn-in was so much crisper, there was so much more available grip, even though they were on a similar tire, just much more grip out of the Mark 7 platform. So the chassis of the car works substantially better than that Mark 6. And so I could really wring this thing's neck, where the Mark 6 had, you know, predominantly understeer. I could make the Mark 7 very easily rotate very gently and point into those corners. And that's so important on a front-wheel drive car, because to put power down on a front-wheel drive car, you really need to get the wheels straight as soon as you can coming out of the corner. And the Mark 7 just let me do that much more efficiently than the Mark 6.
Now, while you were having fun zipping around the track, we were actually stage 1 tuning it. And it's a Cobb tune. And the way it works basically is you plug this little, Well, it's a little like handheld device that you plug in the OBD port, and it takes about 10 minutes, and it increases the horsepower and it increases the torque. And you know, to do this right, we actually put the Mark 6 on a dyno, and we dynoed it, tuned and untuned, so we knew exactly how much power it was putting out between your first lap and your second lap. And the difference, not a lot of horsepower gain, about 10, but about 50 torque more with the tuned one. So let's go to the video when you took it around the track as a tuned Mark 6.
So here we go with the tuned Mark 6. Already more wheel spin off the line. It's got about 50 more almost pound-feet of torque. So we'll see if it gets us anything around here for lap time. And it's all about, really, with a front-wheel drive car, you can have more power, but you gotta be able to put it to the ground. And it's doing pretty well. I actually like it so far. I think it's doing well with its new tuned motor. The DSG's got a shorter second gear, so I'm actually using third in some sections where I'm in second. So the gearing's just a touch different through there. But the car feels a little bit more alive. The engine's a bit more peppy and responsive, and I like that as I take it around here. So it's feeling good. I'm thinking maybe if we get a little bit of time out of this tune, that'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Whoa! Look there! All right, Paul, that was pretty interesting. So, seat of the pants. What's your belief there?
Definitely feel a little more pop off the corners, so
yeah.
You can feel it has a bit more torque. I'm fingers crossed that it translated into a quicker lap time. I think it did. Look at that! Yeah. So we pulled
1.5 seconds.
A little over a second. Yeah, almost 1.5 seconds in lap time. All right, tune your Volkswagens, people. It's worth it.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
You know, and it took us like maybe 10 minutes to tune it. Stage one. It wasn't hard.
That's the amazing thing, and maybe people don't realize, but we did a lap. We had it tuned, and we just did another lap. It was just like that. So fast to do.
Yeah. It's impressive. Very impressive. All right, Paul. So tuned. Does it feel differently around the track?
Right away. I mean, the moment I pulled away, I did the same launch I did with the car 20 minutes prior, and all of a sudden it was spinning the tires quite a bit more, so I had to modulate the throttle. But as soon as I knew that, around the rest of the track, it was a lot more responsive. So not only we had that 50 pound-foot of torque to play with and more horsepower up top, but there was just better engine response. So that really helped me getting around the track.
Yeah, it's incredible what a 10-minute tune can do to a car, huh?
Fantastic. I mean, it kind of puts your faith in putting that money down on a tune and going, is it something that's really worthwhile? And here's something that happens so quickly and so easily without having to do anything to the car, other than plug something into the OBD port, and all of a sudden you've got a car that's substantially faster, and that's cool.
By the way, that Cobb tuner cost about $600. So, for $600, you don't need an expert, and there's different kinds of tunes that are built into the tuner. You can have a fuel efficiency tune, you can have a 0 to 60 or a quarter-mile tune, you can have a track tune. It's all in there, and you just plug it in and pick the tune you want, and away you go.
I think it's pretty amazing to have that sort of versatility and to have that sort of measurable difference too. It's not just, I think it's faster, it feels faster. I mean, it was faster.
Yeah, and the best way to determine that, besides the track, is also doing the 0 to 60, which you did. So let's go back to the track and show these guys what happened between tuned and untuned.
Perfect. Remember, everything we're doing here is at altitude. All right, 7.42 seconds to 60. That's a pretty good run there. A little bit of wheel spin, even in stock form. You get a little bit of wheel spin as the boost builds. So pretty solid run. So here we go for a 0 to 60 run in the Mark 7 Golf with manual transmission. Traction control turned off, so it's up to me to manage the launch and the wheel spin. And this thing does like to spin the tires, so I'm gonna have to be a little bit careful with it here. 7.19 seconds to 60 miles an hour. So that's pretty good. It's about what we'd expect with a vehicle like this. Again, at altitude with a turbocharged engine and, you know, a couple of hundred, just a little over 210 horsepower that this thing has. There we go. All right, so 0 to 60 run in 6.99 seconds, and that's from 7.42. So that's a pretty good drop in 0 to 60 time, especially considering where you have to manage the wheel spin now because the thing's making so much more power. So remember, a front wheel drive car, very hard to launch. So the fact that we knocked almost a half a second off the 0 to 60 time is really impressive, and it goes along well with what we did with the lap time around the track too, where it was almost 1.5 seconds faster with the tune. So bottom line is, tune your Golf, it works.
All right, now the question is there anything wrong with this car? Is there, after spending a week behind the wheel, is there something I'd love to do better? And yeah, there are a few things. For me, the interior, even though it's gotten better, it's just a little too stark, a little too, I don't want to say dramatic, but you know, it's just a little on the cold side. Doesn't have a lot of passion in it like you'd want to see in a car. And the infotainment system, I don't like to review those, but for the most part, it's relatively basic and kind of, you know, in a day of iPhones that can tell you, you know, the weather in Siberia, this feels like a, you know, the first or second take on it.
Cool. One thing I would point out is between the Mark 6 and the Mark 7, it's a huge jump up in interior. You know, whether it's to the level of what we'd expect in a car today, that's another point. But that's the first thing I noticed when I got in that car is like, wow, this looks much more modern than the Mark 6, which looked like a really old car.
Yeah, the thing that I always walk away with after spending a week behind the car is, you know, would I spend my money on that? And that car cost, this one particularly cost just over $30,000. But I took a ride to the dealership, and you can get them for around $25,000. You don't have to have leather seats. You don't have to have, you know, all the bells and whistles, the sunroof. And hell yeah, I would always spend $25,000 on that car.
I think at that price point, it's a fantastic car.
Yeah. So, is it hot or not? What do you say?
Well, I'd say, if just with my last point, you know, saying if we're looking at a $25,000 to $30,000 car and what it did, lap time was around the track and how it handled and felt and how it was when you drove it, to me, it's a hot hatch.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's a no-brainer. That is the original hot hatch. So it is not cold, but it is very hot. So guys, thanks for watching. Remember, come back every Monday when we take another car around our TFL test track, give it to the capable hands of Paul here. And what car are we doing next week, Paul?
Oh, we're going to do the X6M.
That's got a little bit more power, doesn't it?
Oh boy. Buckle up.
A little bit more traction,
Yeah.
a little bit more height.
Yeah.
So be sure to come back next week for the X6M when we, well, we've already done that video. I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say that you had a smile on your face so huge that I thought you were, it should have been illegal. That's all I got to say.
Happy to be alive, Roman. Happy to be alive.
Is it hot or not? That's a question that I think a lot of people ask about many new cars, Paul, and today we're going to find that out with this. The brand spanking new Dodge Challenger Hellcat.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. We obviously know about the Hellcat. Its reputation almost precedes it, you know, with that huge 707 horsepower supercharged V8 under the hood.
Yeah, it is the most powerful American car you can buy. Aventador has less horsepower, and it costs substantially more because that car is about 70 grand. But the question, of course, is what will happen when we get it on the track? Now, Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself.